It is Tuesday, March 14th. Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, here to talk to you about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me get the TikTok folks going on my iPad here. And as always, we will wait maybe 3 minutes for folks to arrive on TikTok, YouTube, and elsewhere. In the meantime, introduce yourselves. And the big thrill today will be to see if this curtain stays up. I'm trying to put up a curtain to block the sun because the time change means I've got sun blaring at me. So it's been quite joyous. So I'm trying using suction pads, but I'm not convinced. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, glad you guys made it. The time change has not been fun for you all, I know. So sorry on behalf of all America. None of us love the time change. Well, none of us. Most of us don't like the time change either. So thank you for that. So what's going on, folks? Yeah, I've got a lot of news today. Unfortunately, there's always a lot of news, so but that's good, I guess. There's a lot of content, so we'll have a lot to talk about. And yeah, just introduce your lot of vitamin D. I'm getting a lot of vitamin D. Yeah. No, it's I have such a wonderful view in my apartment with the sun coming in. The thing is, it's just too much when you're working. And I don't like shutting the curtains entirely because then everything goes dark, So, and my plants, I've got my plants behind me, or you can all see the plants. My plants like the sunlight, so I don't like to close it off anyway. We'll wait another minute or two for folks to join us from TikTok and YouTube. Welcome, folks. If you're watching this on tape later, whatever the kids call it nowadays, watching a recording later, feel free to jump ahead to probably the 3-minute mark, I think, is where we'll be starting. Just waiting for folks to arrive. So I did, Cliff. I'm going to talk about that Washington Post story today. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, I think it is. So yes. Ooh, surgery, bad. Oh, anyway. All right. About to start, folks. We'll make another half minute for folks to arrive, and then we will dig in. As I said, my curtain's already falling. I know this is going to happen middle of the show. I just know it. I know it. Ugh. After the show tonight, I'm buying big suction cups to hold my curtain up because the sun comes in. Worst comes to worst, mid-show, I'm going to be I may be getting up mid-show and closing my curtains if this keeps up, but what do? Dog is asleep beneath the table. All right, guys. Anyway, welcome. I am John Aravosis. It is Tuesday, March 14th. This is the Aravosis Report, our daily update, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. It is day 381 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation, so welcome. The way the show works, as you guys know, if anybody's new, the first half of the show, I will go over the news of the day that I think is important, try to give you my value added to it, why I think the news is important and what's going on, beneath the news. And then the second half of the show, I will take your guys' questions. As you guys know, I've got TikTok here on my iPad, and then I've got YouTube and a bunch of other services, Twitch, etc., on my laptop. For YouTube, I'm pointing to you guys. For TikTok, use the Q&A link that's in my profile. That's probably the easiest way to submit questions. And for the rest of you, use the comment box at the bottom. I do very much appreciate your Happy Pie Day as well. Yes, I should have gone across the street. They sell pies for like half off. Or no, I think they sell them. I think they sell the pies for $3.14 on Pie Day. Not that I need a pie, but it's tempting. Thank you for the gift there, Peach Umbrella. But I also appreciate your guys' gifts because I do this for free. I've been doing it since the war broke out. I started the show a week after the war broke out and have been doing it full time since then. Basically, I pay my bills with your gifts, and your gifts make it possible for me to be able to do this. So thank you, and please keep them coming. Let's start. Gifts on TikTok. I'll thank you when they come up, and YouTube super chat questions or super stickers like me saying Aravosis is always the best. Thank you, me. I appreciate that. All right, let's get rolling, guys. So there was a weird story today. Not as bad as it might have sounded, but still not a great story of a collision between a U.S. drone and a Russian fighter jet. So a U.S. reconnaissance drone that can also be used to attack, but this one reportedly did not have any weapons on it because it wouldn't make sense, was in the Black Sea, right south of Ukraine. Now, our Ukraine map, okay? The Black Sea is basically this area down here, okay? It's bordering Ukraine, Russia's over here, Turkey's over here, Romania's over here, right? So you get I think Bulgaria might even be on the Black Sea. So the U.S. drone was flying. I don't know where exactly it was flying, but it was in international waters, and the Russians were not thrilled. It was basically, spying on the Russians, but that's allowed from international waters, and the Russians didn't like it, so the Russians decided to take it down, which is, of course, illegal. And yeah, it's an act of war. It is. They got near the drone. They got in front of it. They got over it. They literally dropped their fuel from the fighter jet. The fighter jet, which was an Su-27 fighter jet, dumped a bunch of its fuel on top of the drone, hoping the fuel would mess with the systems, cover the sensors, etc. And then they got behind the drone, came up to it, and the drone's propeller is in the very back of the tail, hit the propeller and damaged it. So the drone was no longer able to keep flying. The American government ditched the drone in the Black Sea. The concern now is this is a very high-tech drone, and it's something we don't want the Russians getting their hands on. Just to tell you a little more about the drone, it is not a small drone. It's not the kind of thing you think of when we think of the drones we know, right? The little ones like this. The wingspan on this thing is 66 feet. That's 20 meters wingspan, like tip to tip, rather large. The drone can reach speeds of up to 275 miles per hour. That's 442 kilometers per hour, and fly at an altitude of 50,000 feet. That's 15,240 meters. It's designed for long missions, with some models capable of flying up to 34 hours. And as I said, it was, the Russians were being a pain. Now, I think two things were going on here. One, the Russians didn't want this drone. It's a Reaper drone, correct, Neptunian. It's called a Reaper drone. The Russians did not want this flying and, spying on them. But of course, it's in international airspace. They have nothing to say about that. We all spy on each other from international airspace. It's legal. Secondly, I think Putin is very much wanting to scare us. He wants this to be another story back in the States and in Western Europe where they go, oh, an American, drone crashed into a Russian plane. People could have died. It could have escalated. This could have been war, and it's not worth it. This Ukraine fight just isn't worth it, right? It's the same thing like the nuclear stuff. It's the same thing like everything else. This is meant to scare us. It also is meant to, he was hoping, by the way, I think he was hoping to scare Biden because, and unfortunately, again, love what Biden has done in Ukraine, but I fault Biden on a couple things. And actually, the main thing I fault Biden on is being afraid of Putin. And Biden said repeatedly at the beginning, we can't get into a direct battle with Russia because they have nukes, and that's World War III. And World War III, which in English vernacular means nuclear holocaust, end of the world. As I have said repeatedly, Biden made clear to Putin that under no circumstances will Biden let things get so far that we are in a direct fight with Russia. That means if you're Russia, you do everything you can. Thank you, Crusher, for that. You do everything you can to push the battle so it's almost a direct fight with the U.S. so that the U.S. freaks out and goes, oh my God, we're almost in a fight with Russia. We've got to stop. So that's what also was going on here, I think. Putin was very happy to try to freak out Biden and freak out European allies into, oh, look how close we got into a battle with Russia today. And mind you, the final point there, thank you, Ben, for the super sticker. The final point here is, in our we have a Discord community, which you can find via the link, Aravosis.com, or you guys can find via the link in my profile on TikTok. But we were talking in the Discord community, and a couple of people were concerned, understandably, and said, I'm getting nervous about this, U.S. and Russia planes flying into each other, this kind of thing, right? And thank you, Pure Blood. And the point I raised was I would not get nervous about it because guess who's even more afraid than Joe Biden about getting into a war with Russia? Vladimir Putin is more afraid. NATO can destroy Russia. Nuclear weapons aside, because nuclear weapons, we can all destroy each other. So that's a wash, right? And it's a wash. Neither of us can attack the other and get away with it. Thank you, Elle and Patty. Neither of us can get away with attacking the other because we attack Russia with nukes, they attack us. Russia attacks us with nukes, we attack them, right? Nobody can win. But if you keep it as a conventional war, NATO can destroy Russia, and Russia knows it. Our forces are better. All you need to do is look at what's going on in Ukraine, right? Ukraine, you've got very resourceful people using a lot of NATO weapons and a lot of their own weapons too. Let's face it, the Ukrainians have engineered a lot of their own stuff, like that cruise missile, whatever you want to call it, the Neptune that they used to blow up the Moskva ship. Remember the Russian warship "Go F Yourself" ship that the Ukrainians blew up? Thank you, Marcy, for the sunglasses. The Ukrainians created that themselves, so they've been very creative, but they've also used NATO weapons, and they've at worst have held the Russians to a standstill. I'm not convinced it's a standstill, but at worst, it's kind of like this, right? Not much movement on either side. Russia's the second greatest military in the world. They're not supposed to be at a standstill with little old Ukraine, right? Thank you, Lisa Clay, for that. So if Russia's having problems with Ukraine, imagine what would happen if Russia took on NATO and the United States and Norway and Great Britain and France and Poland and lots of other military. They would, and I mean, this, the trolls aren't going to like it, but thank you for that. Oh, and my favorite Coral of the Sea from Harold, but thank you, Lisa, for the heart as well. You guys know, I'm honest with you on here, and actually I've got an article later. We're going to talk about Estonia too. Didn't mean to drop Estonia there, Flint. I'm honest with you guys about this. If I've got concerns on something going on, I'll tell you. I'm not going to lie to you. NATO can destroy Russia if it stays a conventional war. So Vladimir Putin, the point is, Vladimir Putin does not want this conflict with a drone to turn into a war because he knows he'd lose. What he does want, thank you, KK, for the galaxy. What he does want is for this battle with the drone to scare the hell out of the Americans and basically inflame, hopefully the MAGA right Republicans and the far left into thinking, oh my God, what almost happened? So there you go. Next story. Speaking of MAGA right Republicans, U.S. I wouldn't say presidential candidate because he's not one yet, but he clearly is going to be one. I don't know how it works in other countries. Thank you, John, for the mustache and hat. I don't know how it works in other countries. In the U.S., it can be fairly obvious when someone's going to run for president. Okay. It's just fairly obvious. And I mean, because there's a whole sort of process they go through and they visit the right states like Iowa and New Hampshire. There's certain states they go to and they haven't declared yet, but for some reason they're governors from Florida, for example, and they go to Iowa in the middle of the country and do a speech. And you're going, why would a governor from Florida do that? Anyway, Ron DeSantis, most of you have probably heard of him. Republican governor from Florida, and he is clearly going to run for president against Donald Trump at the very least in this coming election in 2024. Thank you, Riverside, for the sail away. And DeSantis was decent on Ukraine before. He had said a little stuff. He had said something previously that was not so helpful, where he talked about, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and he said something like, Biden cares more about defending Ukraine's border than America's border. But at least he wasn't criticizing the effort in Ukraine. He was simply saying, right, Biden doesn't care about, immigration, whatever. Well, he goes last night on Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News. Tucker Carlson is the number one Russia defender, the number one Ukraine hater on Fox News. And the number one. Tucker is the one that the Russian news is always showing as an example of how, even the Americans say Ukraine is corrupt. He's repeatedly praised Putin. He's repeatedly praised Russia. He's done he's gone for a week, once or twice, I think, to Hungary to show Americans how great a leader Orban is in Hungary. Orban in Hungary, their leader there, is a wannabe dictator. He is not democratic at all. And I say democratic with a small d. He does not believe in democracy. He is a wannabe dictator. And Tucker Carlson literally held him up for the MAGA crowd as somebody he was presenting as, hey, now this guy's really good for America. So this is who Tucker Carlson is. Ron DeSantis, to announce his position on Ukraine, decides to go on Tucker Carlson's show, right? Keep in mind, Tucker Carlson is also ironically, sort of the lead newscaster for the MAGA crowd, for the Trump Republicans, even though we now know from a court case, a lawsuit filed against them, that Tucker Carlson said he hates Donald Trump and was just counting the days for Donald Trump to go away. So, when the election happened. So, Tucker hates Trump, but that doesn't really matter amongst the MAGA folks. Anyway, so DeSantis goes on Tucker last night and says a couple things about Ukraine. I'm going to paraphrase, but basically he says protecting Ukraine is not a key U.S. interest. He referred to the battle between Russia and Ukraine as a territorial dispute. A territorial dispute. The war between Russia and Ukraine isn't because there's some conflict on the border, right? This isn't a situation. I mean, for example, you get countries where there's been a disagreement forever about their border, and there's a region, this kind of stuff. There's not, literally, that is not what's going on here. What's going on here is Putin does not think Ukraine is a real country. He thinks it has always been part of Russia. It is Russia, and it's an affront to him and his imperial Russia that Ukraine exists, and he wants to eat it up, dissolve it, get rid of it, and make it just make them Russians. Get rid of their nationality, get rid of their culture, get rid of everything. It's literally cultural genocide. It's actual genocide, not just cultural genocide. So for DeSantis to go on the show signals where DeSantis is going. He wanted this anti-Ukraine message to go to Trump voters. He is vying for Trump voters. Now, it's no coincidence, I think, that in the latest polls I was seeing among Republicans, thank you for the llama there, who is that, 8 Life? It's no coincidence that the latest polls among Republicans showed, I'm trying to think of the exact number, it was something like 40% for Trump, 38% for DeSantis. So 36, maybe, very close. 36. It was 4 points difference, but it was within the margin of error. Thank you, Malcolm, for the March Madness. So DeSantis is tied with Trump, a little bit behind, but tied. He wants the Trump voters. And what is sad is he is basically willing to, I don't even know what to call this, willing to make foreign policy decisions about war, about how America should interact with basically our top enemies, or whatever word you want to call it, international challenges. I mean, you're right. I mean, I don't know, if you don't want to call Russia and China our enemies, find a better word. But they're the big folks we have to worry about out there are Russia and China right now, and terrorism. And he is making decisions on that based on trying to get votes to become president. Adversaries, that's a good word. Thank you. That's a good word. It's really dangerous. It goes against, U.S. foreign policy. We used to say that politics stops at the border. And typically, presidents would go abroad, or even dealing with U.S. foreign policy, people were relatively lenient. And now, mind you, people were not happy with the Iraq War, right? When Bush invaded Iraq, there was a big controversy, even at the beginning, about that, about whether there was enough evidence, whether he was telling the truth. But generally speaking, Americans, politicians, tried not to make international things too political because, there was a lot at stake. And anyway, it really upsets me because I care about Ukraine. It worries me too with DeSantis. I hope there's enough Republicans that would say this is crazy, but I worry that with Trump and with Fox News, they're convincing Republicans that this war doesn't matter, that this war isn't in America's interests. And I think that's really bad. So anyway, it was bad. It was very bad. So not good for Ukraine. I'll tell you really quick. There's a lot of news tonight, folks. There's a scary Washington Post article out. This is the part of the show where I prove to you that I am objective, and I do try to give you guys the truth here, even though I'm very I'm pro-Ukraine, in case you couldn't tell with my sweatshirt, my Zelensky sweatshirt. But nonetheless, I believe in telling the truth, because otherwise, when you guys find out I lie, then you're not going to come back. So hang on a second. Sip of liquid. There's a Washington Post article that, let me just read you some of it. It's a kind of a scary article. Listen to this. The quality of Ukraine's military force, once considered a substantial advantage over Russia, has been degraded by a year of casualties that have taken many of the most experienced fighters off the battlefield, leading some Ukrainian officials to question Kyiv's readiness to mount a much-anticipated spring offensive. U.S. and European officials have estimated that as many as 120,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed or wounded since the start of the war. Thank you, Evolving, for that. Since the start of the war, compared with about 200,000 killed or injured on the Russian side. Statistics aside, an influx of inexperienced draftees brought in to plug the losses has changed the profile of the Ukrainian force, which is also suffering from basic shortages of ammunition, including artillery shells, mortar bombs, according to military personnel in the field. Now, I was reading online the Washington Post reporter who is based in Ukraine, who was one of the authors of the story. People were criticizing her, and she was already jumping in on Twitter and saying, look, a lot of us have been hearing this from a lot of Ukrainian troops over the last several months, like a lot of them. So I'm willing to take this story at face value. What I do think is interesting is, and I'll get to this in a minute, a lot of what we're seeing, I'll get to this in a few minutes, a story about Russia and its artillery shortage. A lot of what we're hearing here is very similar to what Russia's going through, right? A lot of troops killed. Now, mind you, interesting comparison. I didn't grab this quote, but the story noted an interesting comparison between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine's got 120,000 dead or injured troops. Russia has 200,000 dead or injured troops, but Russia's population is 3.5 times the size of Ukraine's. Thank you, Iggy Woman, for the bear there. Is like 3.5 times. So Russia has a greater population it can tap into than Ukraine. Right. So, both have significant deaths and injuries of troops, both ammunition shortages, both artillery shortages, both, what was the other thing I was going to say? Both the changing aspect of their forces, both have lost a lot of their top forces because they used them at the beginning of the war, right? At the beginning, you don't use your worst forces. You do use your best men. Both Russia and Ukraine, a lot of their best men have either been injured or killed in the battles over the last year. And both countries, Russia, this is my analysis. The Post doesn't quite say this, but both countries, the Post says that Ukraine is having an issue because it's bringing in a lot of new inexperienced troops. That's exactly the problem we've been talking about Russia for months now. Remember, we were talking about when Putin did that big call up of 300,000 new men in September and October. We were talking about how they weren't getting much training, or the training they were getting wasn't that good, and that these new guys were coming in and replacing very experienced troops so that the quality of the Russian fighting force was going down. So, the jar half full or glass half full analysis is Russia and Ukraine both are facing these problems. But I wanted to mention it because I think it's a fair article. It's a fair concern. I will say this. This is one reason why you don't drag the damn war out forever, hoping that maybe someday Russia will negotiate when Russia doesn't negotiate, right? Maybe we should have given Ukraine the weapons it needed at the beginning of the war and not played these games we did over the last year of wringing our hands and going, oh, Vladimir Putin will get angry and he'll treat it as escalation and there will be World War III. And we never gave Ukraine the weapons it needed. We started low, right? We wouldn't give them, we gave them a lot, but we gave them nothing at the beginning, really. It was a lot of nothing. Then the stuff they needed, we slowly, right? First, we didn't want to give them Stinger missiles, then we gave them Stinger missiles, right? We didn't want to give them HIMARS, then we gave them HIMARS. But remember, we gave them 1 HIMARS, and then we gave them 2 HIMARS. And every month, we'd give them 2 more HIMARS, and it was like, what are you doing, right? Drag that out. We got to, I'm trying to remember, the last several months, we got to Patriot missiles. Patriot missiles, I think we didn't decide until, was it December or so? Right? 9 months into the war, we decided to give them Patriot missiles. Then we decided to give them tanks finally in January. I think it was January. The tanks, finally, we decided to give them tanks. Oh, but there's a problem, you see. Because we waited until January, 2 months ago, to give them tanks, it's now going to take a really long time to get Ukraine tanks. American tanks may not even arrive for a year or two. Oh, well, sorry, right? So there's actually a price you pay when you drag things like this out. Now, the big problem, the big price you pay is by dragging this out, you basically, I read this from a Republican congressman yesterday, and I agree with him. Who benefits from the war being dragged out? Vladimir Putin or, Volodymyr Zelensky? Putin, right? Putin runs a dictatorship. Putin can keep fighting the war forever. He may not have, he can keep getting new men and killing them. He may not be able to get the best weapons, right? He's going to have artillery shortages too, but he can keep just killing Ukrainians. Ukraine, on the other side, needs our weapons to stay alive, needs our money to stay alive, because their economy would shut down, right? Because the Russians have so destroyed their economy and people can't work. So if anything, I think we face a greater crisis of trying to keep our support for Ukraine going. And now look at the Ron DeSantis stuff, right? If you're talking long term, I think the West faces greater headwinds going long term than Russia does. So why the hell, if you're Joe Biden, do you pick a policy that basically is shooting for long term, which is what we're doing? We are shooting for a long term war, and it's not just the U.S. It is NATO. Yeah, correct. Casey's saying NATO. It absolutely is NATO, because Biden is doing this because I think General Milley scared the hell out of him, unfortunately. But also, I think France and Germany are just as bad on this. Macron, forget it. And Schultz, forget it with Schultz. This is really bad. I mean, this is really bad. And, it's sort of no one could have predicted it. Everybody predicted it. Everybody's been saying this. You're dragging it out. I don't know enough about Afghanistan anymore to say Afghanistan. It reminds me when I studied Vietnam in graduate school. And again, I'm not the expert on Vietnam or anything, but I seem to remember in Vietnam that there was this sort of gradualness of American sort of involvement. And we just kept sort of upping it and upping it and upping it and upping it. And there's almost an element of, you know what? If you're really going to go in and invade, or in this case, we're going to help somebody fight a war to win, then help them win. But don't sit there and say, I compared it to getting cancer treatment. And your doctor says, okay, we've got a really aggressive treatment plan, but we're only going to give you 2% of your treatment this month. Next month, we'll probably give you more. And a year has gone by now, and you find out the doctor only gave you 50% of your medicine. But it cost a lot of money. So that's good, right? A lot of money he sent to you, but he's only giving you half your medicine. And you're kind of going, wouldn't it have been better just to hit me with everything? And this is not rocket science. Anyway, pisses me off. But Biden's not an idiot. Biden's not an idiot by any means. So I don't think he's making these decisions lightly, but I think he's getting bad advice. And I think when it comes down to it, whether you're president, or chancellor, in America, we have an expression, the buck stops here. And I forgot which president. Was it Johnson? Who was it that had the buck stops here thing on his desk at the White House? And basically it means sort of the decisions stop it was about passing the buck, basically saying, I'm not responsible. He was responsible. And basically Truman, that basically you get to the level, there's no more passing of the buck. By the time you get to the president, there's no more saying, I'm not responsible. It's the other guy when you get to the president. And the idea is he's the one responsible. And one thing I have learned in politics, and I've worked in Washington politics now for 34 years. I started working on Capitol Hill in the U.S. Senate way back in 1989 as a lawyer. And one of the things I've learned, thank you, Bonnie, for that, is, staff play a huge role. But when it comes down to it, the person at the top is the one in charge. So if we've got concerns about what Biden's doing, it's because Biden himself is the one who wanted to go slow. So just pisses me off. Cliff Wolf. General Milley keeps pushing combined arms for offensive and tells Biden no jets for Ukraine. That's insane. Yeah, well, I mean, again, who knows? We're all just conjecturing here. But a number of top reporters I had spoken to months ago, when I was talking about this and what was scary, I mean, they all agreed too. They agreed Biden was holding back. And I was like, what is it? And they all said General Milley. He's got Biden scared. General Milley's just afraid that this whole thing could blow up, and who knows what happens. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing to worry about. I think we should not assume that war with Russia can't happen, right? So I appreciate that. But Jesus Christ. Again, if we're going to get into this war, then let's fight the damn war. Thank you, killers, for the hat. But we're playing it half-assed. Let me tell you a little bit about that was a live blooper there. Let me tell you a little bit about my Discord, and then we will come back and talk about Polish MiGs. So I've got a Discord community. Do check it out at discord.aravosis.com. When I thanked Bonnie and had her thing up, Roshin, but thank you for that. I already thanked Bonnie. Thank you. Was that Nathan for the strawberries? We've got a Discord community that when there isn't as much news and we actually finish on time, which once again will not happen today, we go and we hang out at the Discord community afterwards, and just it's a nice kind of hangout. But it's also neat because Discord's just kind of a fun place where you talk about issues and stuff. And we created in a community. There's about 1,600 people now, 1,600 people, and it's Ukraine, but it's also Iran. It's other news, domestic stuff, Trump and the election, literally our pets, our recipes, sports. It's all sorts of stuff. But it's really fun. And one of the things I like about it as well is it's been a nice way. Thank you, Leanne, for that. It's a nice way to also support my work, but also help Ukraine. We've been running auctions pretty much since we started the Discord. I think they were a syndicate's idea to do the auctions. I don't recall. But he's the one who put it together for us. And we auction off cool Ukrainian stuff. And 50% of the proceeds go to Ukraine. 50% goes to support my work because, as I said, literally I do this full time and literally nobody pays me but you guys. So you're the ones helping me keep doing this, and the Discord helps as well. I'll show you two things really quick. The two latest auction things. I showed you this one yesterday. I got a new shipment in from Ukraine, actually, of a lot of cool stuff. Fridge magnet, but it's a fridge magnet of the famous Russian warship Go F Yourself. Oops. The hat. Thank you, Chris, for the hat of the Russian warship Go F Yourself stamp. It's a fridge magnet of it. This is the Moskva, the ship that the Ukrainians then blew up and sunk. So this is just a fridge magnet that I'm auctioning off for fun. But the other making sure my hands are clean for this one. This is neat. This is a first day edition stamp postmarked of the Ukrainian tractor pulling the Russian tank. So I'll show you really quick. You can see, but it's postmarked. It says, what is it? Dobrigo. I can't pronounce the Dobrigo, whatever. Večera z Ukrainy. But basically, good evening from Ukraine. And it says first day, and says it. You can see the thing, and then it has the date of the first day of issue. So it's kind of cool. It's a first day issue commemorative stamp from Ukraine. And anyway, kind of cool. So we auctioned off a lot of fun stuff, and it's been fun. And I'd say at this point, I think we've raised over $10,000 for Ukraine, but I can never pronounce it because I speak Russian and not Ukrainian. So like Dobrego? I don't know how you pronounce the G in that with Večera I can do. But Dobrego? I'm not trying to pronounce it. Anyway, but yeah, if you guys can check out the Discord. Hello, Ukraine. Dobrego. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Dobrego. So Dobrego Večera. Večera. Of course, I'm doing it Russian with Večer, so you probably do Večer, I'm going to guess. Right? The Ukrainians, you probably say Večera. Because I'd go Večer because of what I learned in Russian. So I'm going to keep making it Russian. I'll stop now because I'm going to make everything Ukrainian Russian, and then we're going to lose our Ukrainian audience. All right, guys, let's keep going. So Poland, let's talk about MiG fighter jets. So sip of water. So there is a H sound. Okay, thank you. Večera. Okay. Hello from Nigeria. We don't get a lot of Nigerians. Good to see you. Thank you for the gift there, Crusher. So Poland. We talked before about Poland's fighter jets and whether Poland was going to give its MiGs to Ukraine. Well, what had happened, first of all, a year ago. Remember, a year ago, hang on, sorry. Oh, cool gift. Ooh, cool UFO gift. Sorry, who was that from? Oh, Dudike, thank you. Oh, I hadn't seen that one before. I like that. Oh, I'm a big UFO fan. We can talk about it another time. Not in a crazy Roswell kind of way, but in I'm into science, and as we've talked about before, 100 billion solar systems, 100 billion galaxies, there got to be something going on. There's got to be something going on. In any case, Poland. So Poland about a year ago had said that it was prepared to give Ukraine, I think it was like 200 MiG fighter jets, something like that. And remember, the US and the Germans got cold feet. So then the Poles got cold feet, and that was the end of that. Okay. Selena, I see yours. I will get to it in a moment. So that was the end of that. Fast forward to last week, and the Polish prime minister and the president both are talking about imminently giving fighter jets, MiG fighter jets to Ukraine. And a lot of us were like, okay, that's interesting. I was noting that the exact quotes didn't say they were going to give that they did not say the planes are coming. They said we want to, we will, we would give. You know, it was this almost conditional kind of talk, right? The latest talk is still kind of conditional. The latest is Poland may provide Ukraine MiGs in a few weeks. May. This is from the Associated Press. Poland's prime minister said Tuesday that his government may hand its Soviet-made MiG-29 fighters jets over to Ukraine within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Poland's leaders said last week that sending the warplanes would be only done within a larger international coalition. See? Caveats. I was warning you guys about caveats here. Some of you got pissed at me, remember? And I said, I'm happy Poland's doing this, but don't count your chickens because I don't think this is going to go through. Slovakia has also declared readiness to provide its MiG-29 planes to Kyiv. Ukraine's Air Force is familiar with the MiG-29s and could use the planes right away. Poland has been using the fighter jets since 1989 and has 28 of them and is switching over to newer American fighter jets, so it might even be able to give all 28. But as I said, I think what's going on is because NATO works through comity, which is a great word, COMITY, basically meaning we all try to get along, right? So nobody in the NATO coalition is going to want to provide weapons that everyone else is going to get pissed that you sent. So I don't think the fighter jets are going unless everybody else goes, all right, we don't love it, but okay. But if the others go, no way, I don't think the jets are going, whether Poland wants them to or not. Let's see. I hope they do. I give Poland credit for forcing the issue. So, thank you, Poles. This is not at all a criticism of the Polish government. I am just concerned that NATO isn't going to let them. So let's see. Question from Selena. I'm a bit confused. Why is it all these other high military officials are saying stop holding back? Why is Biden just listening to General Milley? Also, did you hear about us giving nuclear subs to Australia? Yes, we are going to be building. We are going to be selling. I think, thank you, Thomas, 3 nuclear, there's a deal with the US, the UK, and Australia. We're going to be selling 3 nuclear subs to Australia and then giving them the information they need to build them as they go forward. We are not giving them nuclear weapons. These are not nuclear armed submarines. They are nuclear powered submarines. But yes, and it's a good thing. China's not happy about it because it's part of the coalition growing more militarily more powerful against China in the future is what is motivating this, and China was not happy. Now, as far as the first part, what we find is, and this makes sense, the military officials that are saying stop holding back are not current military officials. They're former military officials, especially the American ones. Now, this makes sense because if you are a current American military official, it would be incredibly inappropriate for you to go public and say the commander-in-chief is doing the wrong thing. We should be giving more. That's not your job. That's his job, right? So it makes sense why a current American military official is not saying we should give more to Ukraine. What is very interesting is that you would be at pains to find a significant number of former top American military officials, like generals, who say, oh yeah, this is going perfectly. We don't need to give Ukraine more. The one who gets closest, I think, is General Hertling, but I think General Hertling does it because he's a good Democrat. He's not only a good Democrat, I think he is being a good American in that I think he's a Democrat, and I think he doesn't want to criticize Biden. But I think more importantly, he's a former top American general, and he doesn't want to criticize the commander-in-chief, so that he's trying to agree with Biden, but slowly give his advice on other stuff, but without saying, yeah, Biden should be doing this and he's not doing it. So I think he's still doing a pro-democracy dance, so to speak, right? He's trying to be a good general in that case. But yeah, basically. And somebody else had said this, I forgot who it was. They said, the reason all the top generals keep speaking out and saying we should be doing more for Ukraine is because they are no longer constrained by working for the White House. So they no longer are forced to hold their tongue, which you have to do when you work for a president. They can tell the truth. And the truth is we should be doing more. No, this is why I said I think General Milley is probably part of the problem, but and I guarantee you, Schultz and Macron are a big part of the problem. But I think Biden wouldn't believe Milley unless Biden were predisposed to believing Milley, right? Biden's got reticence there. I think Biden's gun shy of taking on Russia. And frankly, I would say it worries me about taking on China because China's got nuclear weapons. Biden said for sure we would put troops in Taiwan if China invaded. He said this repeatedly, so it's true. But why would we do that? China has nuclear weapons. Biden has repeatedly said that Russia has nuclear weapons, and therefore we will never put ourselves in a situation where we would be at war with Russia because that would be World War III. Well, then why wouldn't war with China be World War III? They've got nuclear weapons. Oops. Right? So seriously, I think it is. I think Biden is showing weakness. I really do. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think he's showing weakness, and I don't think it helps us with China either. Because I'd be looking at this and going, this guy's afraid of a fight. He's not afraid of a right fight. He's just afraid of a fight. So anyway, we'll see. Super chat, Danielle. Okay, sorry. I was answering Danielle. Hello, O'Neill. Thanks for the tweet today. I did read, or I read or watched whatever you sent me. I'm forgetting already. Ukraine has received 4 Gray Eagle drones capable of launching JDAMs, according to Malcolm Nance today. I was texting with Malcolm last night. Maybe the Russians are getting a little nervous about drones. I suspect that Ukraine is far better armed than advertised. Okay. Ukraine has received 4 Gray Eagle drones. Okay. Capable of launching JDAMs. Really? Oh, that's interesting. So the JDAMs are the, correct me if I'm wrong. The JDAMs are the kit that you attach to other bombs, and it turns dumb bombs into smart bombs, basically. And they can also go farther because they've got, basically wings, not wings, but you know what I mean, wings on them that allow them to go farther and be guided. GPS, inertial guidance, just makes the bomb much better. That's interesting because we know the JDAMs are already operational in Ukraine. That news came out a few days ago, so we knew that. And Malcolm is saying these Gray Eagle drones, I don't know anything about Gray Eagle drones, but if they're capable of launching JDAMs, that's very interesting. Now, my suspicion with that is one of the issues, actually, that's what you sent me today was the JDAMs article. One of the things we were talking about was what kind of delivery system would you use? Would these go with planes? Would they go, what would you use to deliver these? A lot of it seems to be planes. The drone thing is interesting because we do know that Russia controls its own airspace very well. Okay, meaning the land that Russia occupies in Ukraine, they've got, very good anti-aircraft weapons and things like that, right? So Ukraine, I think, is able to do some things in that territory, but it's risky. They would lose their planes. Drones, at least seem, from what we've seen, even coming into Ukraine, but going into Russia, we know drones seem to have a better chance of getting by this stuff, right? I don't think just because they have a smaller signature, they probably go lower to the ground. It's probably a lot of this stuff, right? Therefore, putting these on drones, does that mean, and any of you military folks weigh in, does that mean you have a better chance of getting them across the occupied border? In other words, occupied Ukraine where the Russians are, do you have a better chance of getting the drones in there and getting them farther in there because without being seen than you would an aircraft? Because if so, that would mean that the JDAMs could go even farther, deeper inside the occupied territory, which is really significant because then you'd be able to hit Russian supply depots, Russian command and control, which is basically military headquarters, Russian crew quarters, right? Which the Ukrainians did on New Year's, all sorts of things. Ellen John, thank you for the shiny air balloon. Rowdry saying, yeah, except with all the support, they just lose more and more. I'm not sure what you mean with that. Okay. Drones can take greater risks. Well, I guess, right. You can take greater risks because Callum's saying because you're not risking a life. The only thing is, I don't know how expensive these drones are, and I don't know the JDAMs, whether we want them getting shot down, right? Like whether we want the Russians getting all of this and whether it's, you know what I mean? Like whether it's expendable or not. That's the thing I don't know. Anyway, very interesting. All right. More here. Russians. Oh yeah, quick little story, but a Russian missile today going after Ukraine. It was a surface-to-air missile, and the Russians were using it. Thanks again, Daniel. The Russians were using it to attack ground targets in Ukraine, which the Russians do a lot. Basically, it's been considered a sign that the Russians really don't. Oh, hey Rachel, thank you for that. I don't know if you had a question. If you did, feel free to throw one in there. It has been a sign of the fact that the Russians are running low on a lot of equipment, that they have been using surface-to-air missiles, which are basically missiles used to shoot down drones, airplanes, things like that. They've been using them to go after ground targets in Ukraine, to go after buildings and things like that. Well, the problem is, first of all, the bomb is very small. You don't need a very big bomb to blow up a plane, but because it's out in space, as soon as it gets damaged, it's in trouble. You do need a bigger bomb to blow up a building. So that's the first thing. Sorry, I'm like spacing. I say, I've got to stop doing this. I read your guys' comments as I'm talking, and I've got to stop doing it. I just saw, no offense to you, because I appreciate you did it. Somebody put the price up for JDAMs on TikTok, and I looked, I was like, oh, 25,000, that's right. And as soon as in my head I went 25,000, that's right, I went zing and totally lost my train of thought. So it's okay. I mean, I appreciate you doing it though. Thank you, Addie, for the gift there. So Russia's using these surface-to-air missiles. The other thing is you can't really direct them very well. Like, they're not good against ground targets. And there's a really good chance of them hitting civilians, but we know that's considered a plus for Russia. They want to hit civilians. Any case, so Russia's using the surface-to-air missile today. Thank you for the corgi there, Benji. The surface-to-air missiles, it shoots off today from Belgorod, Russia, which is right across the border here from Kharkiv. So right up here, literally 20 miles across the border, right? They shoot from Belgorod, aiming for probably Kharkiv, and the missile comes back at them and crashes in a Russian residential neighborhood, because Russia's just not very good at this. I don't have much more to tell you other than basically they attacked one of their own residential neighborhoods today. So, woo, hoorah. British military intelligence today. So British military intelligence today, let me read you a little bit about this and then some analysis from a Ukraine defense guy that's interesting. This gets to the whole issue of what I was talking about earlier, where we talk a lot about Ukraine's weapons shortages, artillery, things like that. But we forget to talk about Russia's. Russia is in the same situation. And that's the one reason, at least I would say, that stretching out the war gets interesting, because it's bad for Ukraine because the West may walk, but it's not great for Russia because they're running out of weapons. The Eagle drone is 31 million. There you go. That's what I was saying. I'm not convinced it's a drone that we would just be like, let's get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like it's expendable. Not for 30 million. It's not expendable. So listen to this. British military intelligence. In recent weeks, Russian artillery ammunition shortages have likely worsened to the extent that extremely punitive shell rationing is in force on many parts of the front. This has almost certainly been a key reason why no Russian formation has recently been able to generate operationally significant offensive action. Long story short, the Russians are rationing their artillery shells, and therefore Russian forces haven't been able to accomplish much on the artillery front in the last few weeks. Russia has almost certainly already resorted to issuing old munition stock, so old artillery that they had saved up, which were previously categorized as unfit to use. So Russia's got old artillery that they don't trust because it's so old, and the Russians are notoriously bad at their upkeep of this stuff, that basically they decided it's too dangerous to use, and because it could blow up when you're transporting it, but also it may not even work, but they're so desperate now that that's what they're relying on, which is really interesting, right? Then a Ukrainian defense expert, Mykola Bielyeskov, that's what I'm gonna stick with, was doing a series of tweets today analyzing this. Oh, let me see here. Sorry, there's a super chat I missed. I will pull that up and bring it up right after this. One moment. Oh, was it Rachel following up? Maybe it was. Oh no, Kelly Fonts. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to. Okay, I'm totally lost at whatever it is you guys are trying to pull up here. Somebody's going to have to. Somebody's going to have to pull it up again. I have no idea who has a super chat. Kazakhstan evicted from. Oh, that's interesting. Is this Roger or who? I don't know anything about this. Kazakhstan evicted from Roscosmos for non-payment of rent. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, real quick. This is a super chat question, and I always promise I'll get to those, and then we'll keep talking about this about Russians rationing. So, Roscosmos is the Russian space agency, from what I know. Kazakhstan is, for example, where a lot of the rockets take off and land from. For example, I know that, remember we were worried last year about the American astronaut not being able to get off the space station because we thought the Russians were going to leave him up there. Well, the spacecraft, the rocket that went up there to get them, got 2 cosmonauts and the 1 astronaut and brought them back to Kazakhstan. So I'm not really up on this, but one can assume Kazakhstan has been playing a lead role in the Russian space program. Kazakhstan was evicted from Roscosmos for non-payment of rent. Oh, that's just bizarre. I don't even know what that. Yeah, that's just bizarre. I don't even know what that even, like, whether there's political intrigue here or simply the Russians need their money. That's crazy. Yeah, that's bizarre, but okay, interesting. So, okay, back to this Ukrainian defense expert. So he weighed in on a series of tweets today talking about this message that came out from British intelligence today saying how the Russians were in trouble with their artillery. Listen to this. Okay, I'm paraphrasing some of this. The Russian shortage is a big deal, as this is how Russia primarily wages war with artillery. And he's right about that. Russia's big way of waging war is getting all of their artillery going and basically bombing the hell out of the other guy with artillery. And then once you've literally destroyed everything, right? They destroy the cities, the people, the Russian troops just move in. If they're low on artillery, they've lost their main mechanism. The main Russian tactic for war is artillery. So Russia still has an artillery advantage over Ukraine, but not enough for successful advances. He says that this will affect Ukraine and Russia, and the only way for the West to help Ukraine make up for the deficit that Ukraine is also having in artillery is providing ATACMS, which are long-range rockets that can go 200 miles or 300 kilometers with permission to hit Russian targets in the rear that the front line depends on. So in other words, the way around it for Ukraine is giving them long-range missiles that can go so far that they're able to hit Russian supplies. So Russian artillery, basically the remaining Russian artillery and ammunition and food and other water as well, and diesel fuel that the troops at the front are relying on. But we don't want to give them ATACMS because Joe Biden's afraid of Vladimir Putin. All right. Sorry, a couple more stories. NATO. Swedish leader said today that Finland is likely to join NATO before Sweden, and Hungary postponed the vote again, now moving into the end of March. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pitch my Patreon, and then the last story I'll tell you about tomorrow because it's a long one, and my God, it's already 7 o'clock. I can't believe we went this long. Although we did have a lot of questions too. I mean, we're going to keep going. Don't worry. But let me pitch my Patreon, and then we'll go to the rest of the questions. So I've also got a Patreon set up. It's at patreon.com/Aravosis. You guys can find it via the link in my profile. You guys can find it you got it at the bottom of the screen there. And basically, Patreon is a really neat way that you can help creators by providing them with a source of income every month. Oh, thank you for the ugly duckling swan there, inspired woman. Pretty much it's a way that you're able to pay $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever. And it's a set amount of money that comes, and it renews until you cancel. And it's really helpful to people like me because I literally can see how much money's coming in each month, and it helps me pay the bills. So anyway, very helpful. I always say, if you've been watching for several months, if you like my work, and you got some extra money, if you could pitch in even $5 a month, it's helpful. So please go to patreon.com/Aravosis. One benefit is, beyond helping me, which is always a benefit. Thank you, Ben, for that. And Rubia for the paw. One extra benefit is if you become a $5 or more Patreon subscriber, you can link it to my Discord community, and then you are a VIP in the Discord community, which gives you access to certain things, including our VIP auction with really cool stuff from Ukraine, And I have just instituted, just this week, you are going to be joining us for our Saturday morning coffee talks. So every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, I hold a coffee talk that's just very casual. We usually don't talk politics. We can if people have questions, but we usually don't. And it's just a nice hangout for, 45 minutes, an hour. Usually it's an hour or so. But it's Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern time US, and it's for the paid subscribers on TikTok and the paid subscribers on Discord, $5 a month and up. So it's a new sort of benefit that I'm offering on Discord because I thought it'd be nice if they could join us for the TikTok thing. So anyway, you get that too, in addition to knowing that you help support my work and help me keep this broadcast going, because I do it for free, and but I can't do it for free. I do it for free, but I'm basically, you guys are pitching in and helping me pay the bills so I can keep doing it. So I appreciate you helping. So thank you. All right. And thank you for the gift, Rubia. All right. Let's jump in and take more questions. I don't mind going long because there was a lot of good news, important news. And you guys did have a lot of questions as well that we were getting to. So that's okay. All right. TikTok. Let me jump in with some TikTok questions first. You guys feel free to submit the questions via the Q&A link in my profile on TikTok. Another sip of my Stand with Ukraine water. Stephen Hamrick. Thank you. Stephen Hamrick just did one on Patreon. Thank you, Stephen. That was nice of you. Only because I was just looking at my phone to pull up my TikTok as you did that. Thank you for that. That's very nice of you. And there are instructions there how to link it to Patreon. It can be confusing. If it is confusing, feel free to reach out and I'll help you figure it out. It's not that hard. I mean, once you see the instructions, you go, okay, but it can be glitchy. Oh, hang on. Q&A. Thank you, Brigitte for the confetti. Dobroho večera. There you go. Hopefully I'm saying that better. Oh, we were talking about this last night. The Vilka M. Thank you, Purnell, for the robe. This is the Vilka M. So, who is this? Mordu. Actually, Mordu, this wasn't from last night, was it? You guys are putting in, yeah, this was from tonight. Okay, so we were talking about this last night. The Vilka M has 36% more range than the HIMARS. Well, okay, we were trying to look into this. Thank you, Jetta Mom, for the llama. Ukraine has been developing them from 2018, have 100 built, 4-man crews. I think the range is 120 kilometers or 68 miles. Okay, that's good. The HIMARS actually, from the people I've talked to, the experts say it can go to, oh yeah, Ben, sorry about that, Ben. It can go up to 60 miles, even though the HIMARS, like, we claim 43 miles or something like that. It actually is more like 60, I'm told. So this is still longer, which is good. It's not long enough, but it's good. It's still longer. So yeah. Ben had a super chat question. Sorry, Ben. I even put it on the screen so I wouldn't forget, and I forgot. Do you think the drone collision, which we talked about earlier today, our top story was that Russians had basically collided on purpose with an American drone, knocking it out of the sky today. Very dangerous. Do you think the drone collision will fuel anti-sentiment or anti-Russian sentiment in NATO and see countries put more pressure on Ukraine or anti-war sentiment in NATO and see countries put more pressure on Ukraine to negotiate an unfavorable peace because we're scared of Putin? Yeah. I don't see how it helps. I think it's one more thing that will simply scare some people into thinking, oh, we had a close call today. What if next time we have a close call between a manned American fighter jet and a Russian, and the Russians knock us down, or worse, we knock the Russians down and they go crazy? Yeah, no, that's all it can do is hurt. I still think it's BS, but all it can do is hurt. Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything more to add because I think, yeah, it's a no-brainer. The scaredy pants are just going to get more scared. What else we got here? TikTok. Are there commercial airlines still flying to Kyiv? No. Wondering about business travel more than tourism? No. Everyone flying to Kyiv is flying to Warsaw. And then they're taking a bus from Warsaw, or they're flying into Romania and taking a train across, and not a bus, but a train, or they're taking a train, across Romania into Ukraine, but they're not flying into Ukraine. No. I know that. It's just trains for sure. The The EU president and Trudeau say that they need, Trudeau's the Prime Minister of Canada, say that they need to be doing more. What are the chances a group of countries go against Biden and NATO holdouts? I don't think so. I don't think so. Just because I think, part of what is important for taking on Putin is the psychological benefit of him seeing NATO united. If NATO starts breaking apart country by country, part of the danger you get is one of the countries that feels slighted. Like if France or Germany feel like, the rest of NATO is ignoring us, they're doing things that we think are wrong or dangerous, they could say, you know what, we're out. We're not helping anymore. And if they really get pissed off, they could violate the sanctions and say, we're not part of the sanctions regime anymore. I don't think it would go that far, but I think it's so important to keep the relations. And this is also a matter of, we're sort of learning as we go with this. We're trying to figure out, part of what this is an exercise in how NATO and developed world, or not even developed world, how the world will respond to a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, right? So just for that as well, we need to keep unified so Taiwan doesn't go, so what happens is after a year, they all fall apart. That's good to know, right? So I think, I don't think there's any situation in which it benefits having the coalition kind of fall apart. I don't think so. I do think it's the other NATO nations. I think Biden's part of the problem, Casey. Casey's saying Biden isn't the problem. I'm telling you it's the other NATO countries. I think absolutely it's the other NATO countries. I still think France and Germany. There may be some other one. Hungary, forget it. Hungary and Turkey, total idiots. Hungary clearly tries to cause problems. Turkey as well. But I don't know how much sway Hungary is having on all of this. Maybe they do. But Biden is still, Biden made too many comments about World War III. If he didn't believe it, he shouldn't have said it. He made too many comments about how we cannot go to war with Russia. He was telling the truth. Now, not impeach Biden, because I got news for you. Guess who would have been worse than Biden? The other guy. The other guy would have sent American troops in alongside the Russians. I'm exaggerating, but only by this much. So Biden's done a great job, but you know what? He's got to do I'm sorry. We are quasi at war. He needs to do a better job. As I always say, he gets a B+. I want an A, but he gets a B+. Maybe a B++, but I still want an A. Thank you for the hat there, Azamek. Let me look. I'm just looking also on YouTube, if you guys have any more here. Well, that's the thing. Brave Cobra saying, I guess this is the first time NATO coalition is really being tested for cohesion. That's the thing. I think part of this is, let's face it, we haven't really fought any wars as a coalition before. After 9/11, NATO got together, which was great, but we weren't really fighting a war together. We need this to work, right? We're learning how to make it work. We need the enemy to see that we're holding together, but I also think we need this to work so that it's I'm not sure how to explain this. We need to be able to create the muscle memory, so to speak, of this working so that it works more in the future, right? That we're almost creating a culture. We're creating almost a business culture of a new organization in a way, because NATO has existed for decades, but it hasn't been at war for, ever really in the way that we are now. Thank you, Elle. So that it behooves us to make it work so that we can get the structures in place, and hopefully it works next time too, right? I think it's important sort of culturally for NATO that this doesn't fall apart, because otherwise even worse next time. Because that's part of it too. By the way, if let's say it were Britain and Canada or whoever who just said, screw it, we're going to go ahead anyway. We don't care if America, France, and Germany don't like it. Well, then why would America, France, and Germany join you next time for the next battle, right? Because all the countries go, well, we're not joining you next time. You're going to do it again. You're going to get into this battle with China, and then you're going to do something really dangerous, and you're going to get my country in trouble. That's another reason why you don't mess around with that. Chewy's angry. Chewy, calm down. Calm down. I don't grade presidents on a curve. Yes. Joe Biden is better than Vladimir Putin. He doesn't get an A because he's better than Vladimir Putin. We're fighting a war. And it's really important that we win this. I'm on my TikTok again. It's really important we win this war. He's doing a great job. He needs to do a better job. And yeah, he's doing much better than Trump because Trump would have been a traitor. So what? That's not how you grade. I mean, again, I look at this. Thank you, Cheryl Moore. We're talking about life and death here. We're talking about national security. You don't grade on a curve. You know, if I'm going to a doctor and I'm dying of cancer, but there is some hope for me, I'm not going to say, well, that doctor ended up killing me. He could have saved me, but he killed me. But he's better than a lot of other doctors. Well, no. I mean, I think we have the ability to save Ukraine. I think Biden's afraid of saving Ukraine because Biden wants a tie because he's afraid of Putin. And therefore, he's doing everything he can just short of giving Ukraine what it needs to win the war. And I think that's bad. And again, part of it is because of France and Germany. Yes. But part of it is because of Biden. Biden has said repeatedly, it doesn't matter what you think. At the beginning of the war, Biden said repeatedly, it would be World War III if we got into a war with Russia. It's crazy. It was about the planes, actually. It was about the stupid planes, I think he said this, about Poland offering the planes. Well, we can't go to war with Russia. If we went to war, this could cause war with Russia. It would be World War III. That was fear. If you're Vladimir Putin, you're listening to that and you are hearing a man who is afraid of going to war with you and a man who is afraid of even giving weapons to Ukraine, lest you go to war with Russia. And if you're Putin, you go, this is great. I guess I just have to keep ramping up the war talk and I'll scare Biden. No, I'm sorry. That does not mean he's a bad president. But this is an issue I've had with Democrats before. I do not, and this is probably why I'm not rich. And, rich is I don't do the bullshit that Democrats do, and Republicans forget it, they're worse, but where we're supposed to genuflect before our leaders and say, well, Biden's my president and I voted for him, so I can't criticize him. Bullshit. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I am here to help Ukraine. My life has been working on issues that I am trying to make a difference because I think they matter. That's more important than who's in office. I mean, it's if my guy's in office, great. If he's not doing the right thing, I am going to criticize him and make him do the right thing. I'm not going to put the other guy in office. I'm not going to help Ron DeSantis if I care about Ukraine. I'm not doing that. But am I going to criticize Biden and try to put pressure on him to do better? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. But I think too many people on the left don't sort of you can disagree with me on the analysis, but I think too many people get personally offended when you criticize your guy. And it's he's not your boyfriend. Anyway, feel free to have a different analysis. That's okay. Now, the moderators don't mind questions against the narrative. The moderators mind people who come who are clearly here to disrupt. And most of the people who come with going against the narrative are clearly here to disrupt. And especially the fact that the moderators have been doing this, most of them for a year, you can smell the people trying to disrupt from the beginning. It's not always, sometimes you get it wrong. And we will always, as soon as somebody asks to come back on, we always let them back on because the nice guys always ask to come back on. The nasty guys never ask to come back on. So there's always, it's occasional that a nice person gets banned and we let them back. It's okay. But yeah, it's not easy to moderate. No, I think that's part of it. No, look, what Brave Cobra is saying here is true, but this is true. One aspect of what Biden is doing with the weapons and why he's slow walking the weapons to Ukraine. Brave Cobra says on Twitch, it might be a sneaky tactic of Biden to aptly or to apply political attrition on Russia by prolonging it. The longer it takes, the weaker Russia becomes in the end. Now, it's not just that. I think it's the frog boiling in the pot thing, right? If we go really slowly with the weapons and we slowly give them better stuff, by the time we got to the tanks in January, Russia didn't go ballistic over the tanks, right? Now, mind you, the tanks are coming very slowly to Ukraine, but it's not like Russia said, oh my God, we're using nukes because you gave tanks. Had we given tanks back in September, Russia might have freaked out. Sure, maybe. So I think that is not, I think that argument is correct, that walking slowly helped in terms of making sure you didn't piss off Russia. I'm not sure it matters, is my point. So what if we piss off Russia? They're going to nuke us? They're not going to nuke us. They nuke us, we nuke them. They die. They know that. They're not going to nuke us. And what are they going to declare war on us? Our military is stronger than theirs. They know it is. Russia knows they can't beat NATO. So, I mean, that's my problem with this is, yes, going slowly and slowly giving Ukraine the weapons it needs and not doing it all at once, but doing it over a year and a half instead, makes it harder for Russia to speak up and go crazy. But what are they going to do? Kill Ukrainian civilians in response? I mean, I literally don't see what Russia could do in response that it's not already doing at this point. That's my problem. That's why I think Biden's argument or his logic here is flawed, because that's what I always say. What exactly would Russia do had we given Ukraine tanks on day one? Again, they wouldn't have used nukes, and they wouldn't have declared war, because we'd beat them so fast it would make their heads spin if they declared war on us. And if it was nuclear war, they know we'd all die, and they would die too, so they wouldn't do that either. So no, Putin has been bluffing us that's what pisses me off. Putin has been bluffing us from the beginning, and we fell for it, and that pisses me off. So, again, feel free to disagree. No, I mean, I'm not going to get pissed if you disagree, politely. Well, he did. I mean, Alexander is saying from Ukraine, but what Putin said Russia would use nukes if SMB, what's SMB, would try to help Ukraine. Oh, if somebody would try to help Ukraine. He did, and then he lied. Remember? Putin said he would. They basically said they'd use nukes if Ukraine attacked within Russia. They did. They would use nukes if Ukraine attacked Crimea. Ukraine has attacked Crimea multiple times. They claimed that there would be nukes if Ukraine attacked the newly annexed territories, right? So all the Ukrainian territories that Russia stole this year, that if Ukraine continues fighting in those territories, they will be fighting in Russia and we'll use nukes. Well, guess what? Ukraine continued to fight and there have been no nukes. The nuke thing has been a joke from the beginning. It's been a total bluff. And in any case, like I said, if they use nukes, it's game over for them. And they know it. So the nuke thing is the threat because it's all they've got. And what Wild Hunt Corsetry just said, if it wouldn't surprise me if Russia's nukes don't even function. That's a whole other problem for Russia. It's not clear their nukes do function, their nuclear weapons. And if Russia were to use one of its nuclear weapons in Ukraine and it didn't work, it would be pretty dangerous for Russia, because any country that was holding back because they were afraid of Russia's nukes might sit there and go, you know what? Russia might not really have nukes that we were afraid of. Maybe we should do more against Russia. So that's a whole other problem. Russia, I think, is built on one big bluff right now, a bluff with a lot of weapons that causes a lot of damage, right? Conventionally, Russia's been able to do a lot of damage to Ukraine. So I'm not going to knock that. I mean, we know that, but oh my. Anyway, what else we got here? What else we got? All right, look for a couple more questions and then we'll call it quits. I feel like we've had a hefty back and forth, which is what I wanted. I didn't want to just be giving you guys the news today. Didn't Ukraine have any artillery and weapons? Sure, but they've been using a lot. Like long-range missiles, I don't think so. They've known Russia was coming for them. Yeah, but I don't think we were willing to give them the long-range missiles before. So, no. Because, I mean, you can only, they can only develop what they can develop. I think maybe Ukraine wasn't capable of developing a missile that goes 200 miles, right? That if they just aren't technologically capable of doing it, they're not, right? And if we're not giving them ours, but no, they had a lot of artillery, but they're going through so much on a daily, exactly what Benjamin's saying. They're going through so many on a daily basis because this is a big war. You run out, Sash, you got to wait. I know you got to wait. My dog's begging, of course. Let me see here. No. Don't know. Magical Photos asking if the drone sank or is floating. I just assumed it sank, but I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. I thought I read it might have sank. I don't know. I'm not sure what. No, it's okay. It's okay. Merci bien, Jingle. Oh, oui, c'est vrai que t'es québécois. Non, je crois que ça va. But thanks. Washington Cliff Wolf says the Washington Post article did say Lloyd Austin, our defense secretary, has been telling Zelensky to abandon Bakhmut since January. I do know that. Also, 300 soldiers are in tunnels in Bakhmut underneath the Russians. That's interesting. I don't know about that. But yeah, Austin has been saying he thinks. I think what the American either it's disinformation, which is possible, trying to make the Russians think the Americans and the Ukrainians disagree about Bakhmut, right? That's possible. Or we're literally trying to signal to Zelensky that he needs to stop. The only thing is, why would you do that publicly? It seems a little weird to me that we would do that publicly, which makes me think it's disinformation. It really does. Chris, thank you for the super sticker. It just makes me feel that way. I don't know. No, not really, Chewy. I don't understand your question. Your question doesn't make sense. That question, I mean, I'll answer it because it's kind of the question that trolls ask, but has anyone asked themselves if Russia is losing so badly? By the way, it's losing, not loosing. Loosing is what Russians write, just so you know. That spelling is the Russian spelling. So bad, why is the world endlessly dumping money? The world isn't endlessly dumping money into Ukraine. The Ukraine, that's, by the way, what Russians call it. You got a lot of Russian typos in your thing there, Chewy. Just got to tell you, and they're getting nowhere. Well, they got back 50% of their territory that the Russians stole from them. So actually, they got somewhere, and asking for more. Well, they're asking for more because they haven't gotten their whole country back from you guys yet. So why wouldn't they? Yeah, Jingle, you're right. Go for it, Jingle. You were right. I was wrong. You were right. All right. Oh, God. Yeah, he's gone. Chewy, you don't know me. It's so weird seeing the left being warmongers. You know, first of all, I have been aware of the Russians ever since I was a little boy. I was sick and tired of the BS, the dictatorship, the bullying your people did around the world since I was a teenager in the 1970s. I even wrote to the Russian premier, Brezhnev, back then. Thanks, Jingle. Wrote to Brezhnev back then because I was sick of the way he was treating Andrei Sakharov, a Jewish, I think he was Jewish, Soviet dissident. The Russians have done horrific things. Let's go back to World War II, when Soviet Union, basically Russia, decided to steal and captivate half of Europe and put it under a communist dictatorship. We're talking horrific dictatorship that half of Europe was under. Poland, half of Germany, Czechoslovakia. You go through the whole thing. Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. You go through it. Horrific what the Russians and Soviets, but really what the Russians did. Sorry, I forgot where we were going with this, which your ridiculous question. Oh, the warmongering. So I have always been pro-defense. I have always had no problems with using military power to go after bad guys. I have a lot of rules for it, right? You don't just do it because it feels good. You don't just do it if you don't think you're going to win. You don't just do it if you don't know that you're no. You can only know so much that the outcome will be better than not going in. And you don't just do it because it's the right thing to do, because if it's the right thing to do, but you're not going to win, then there's no point in going, right? Why invade if you're not going to win? But yeah, a lot of us don't like genocide. I think the people who don't understand why people on the left might be pro-war when a genocide is happening is because you're not on the left and you don't care about genocide. I've always said this. I think there's a sort of a growing number of people where I think sometimes the complaints they raise tell you more about who they are. So somebody that would say, why would somebody on the left be pro-war? Well, again, it's a war where the other guy's committing genocide, where he's literally, the story I didn't get to tonight was about the sexual abuse of 4-year-old girl by Russian troops. That's the story we're going to talk about tomorrow. I think people on the left and people on the right hear stories like that and say, that is horrific. I think people on the left and right hear about the Russians having kidnapped thousands of Ukrainian kids, made them orphans by killing their parents, not even frankly checking if their parents are dead, and just taking the kids, kidnapping them and bringing them to Russia, and then pretty much auctioning them off and just giving them away to Russian families. So now these Ukrainian kids who just lost their parents, and mind you, they may have only lost their parents might not even be dead. The Russians stole them and just gave them to Russian families and made them Russian. What is going on is the most disgusting thing to have happened in Europe since World War II, is what the Russians are doing. And if I have always thought, if you're a lefty, my problem with the left in the past has been, I think the left didn't enough stand up for its own convictions. The left, and the right does this too, by the way. The right always wants to defend the right-wing dictators. The left always wants to defend the left-wing dictators, right? And what's happening now with Russia is a lot of the MAGA Republicans see Putin as being a right-wing dictator, so now they like him, right? And you get that. I'm not a big fan of the dictators on either side. I don't like any of them, you know? I mean, it's, yeah. So in any case, no, but that kind of stuff drives me nuts where it's like, you know, no. I mean, it is a fight for humanity and dignity. And again, I don't think you fight it if fighting it isn't going to accomplish anything. Sure. But it is clear we could have won this. Had we given Ukraine what it needed, we could have won this. And we didn't give Ukraine what it needed. We dragged it out. And now we're sitting here with Ukraine running out of weapons, Russia running out of weapons, and we're still not giving Ukraine what it needs in terms of the long-range missiles or the fighter jets. So, you know, yeah. No, that guy was a renaming children. Exactly. No, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I didn't even get to this. One of the stories that was in Mariupol, I think it is. They're now making Ukrainian school kids sing the Russian national anthem and raise like they've got to put the Russian flag up themselves because it's their flag now, and sing the Russian national anthem because now it's their national anthem. They literally told these kids, "You're Russian now." I mean, that's just like to a little kid. No, these guys, I'm sorry, they're evil. They are evil what they're doing. It's a war crime, but war crimes, I think people don't even understand that. They're evil. What they're doing is evil, and it's got to be stopped. We have the ability to stop it, and there's a greater danger because it's not like, oh, this is just some country we've never heard of that can't bother us. They're coming for us next, folks. You know, thank you, Russell. Russia is going to be empowered if they win in Ukraine, and they're going to cause more and more trouble in other countries around them and eventually more in Europe. And I would turn it around on Biden and the rest of them and say, it's the very fact that Russia has nuclear weapons why you can't let them get away with this. You cannot let a country this powerful start doing these kind of things because they're going to do it more and more and more. And by the way, everyone else is going to do it too. Again, China, among others, you know? Oh, honey, you have no idea how much I was supporting the vaccine mandates. Absolutely. You should have lost your job if you didn't get a vaccine mandate. And by the way, thanks to people like me, your side only killed 1.5 million Americans because a lot more would have died had you had your way. So yeah, baby. Sorry, a troll came on worrying about vaccine mandates. Not to mention, by the way, real quick point, I'm going to go after this, but this is a point I make for the rest of you. That was a learning moment right there, a teaching moment. A troll came on and literally, mind you, a troll came on who isn't happy that we're supporting Ukraine, okay? So what does he say? I bet you were supporting vaccine mandates, COVID vaccine mandates. What do COVID vaccine mandates have to do with Ukraine, right? Now, they do if you're part of a political movement that only exists to say no, right? That basically only exists to define yourself as my positions are no, right? So that Ukraine, the president is a Democrat, so I'm just going to say no, we're not going to help Ukraine, right? COVID, well, it was actually when it was Trump's position was COVID doesn't exist. Biden's position was COVID does exist. So of course they had to side with Trump anyway. And then once Biden came to power, it was even worse, right? They had to be against COVID. But what's interesting to me is, when's the last time we talked about COVID, guys? Like COVID isn't over, but it's over, right? I mean, it's in the news occasionally, but we're now at the point where we're just kind of accepting it. I mean, I'm still wearing my mask when I go to the store or my doctor's office, but we're accepting it. These guys are still talking about COVID. They're still putting out the fake talking points. And it's something that I will say Republicans do, and they do it very well. And this guy, I guarantee you, is a MAGA Republican. And it's something Republicans do and Democrats don't, which is they stick to their talking points and they say it again and again and again and again and again, and they don't stop, right? Donald Trump talked about how all the time, oh, we inherited a horrible economy from Barack Obama and Trump turned it around. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Economic growth was higher under Barack Obama than it was under Donald Trump. One. Two, thank you for the galaxy there. Who was that? Erica. Two, unemployment was at approximately 4.8% under Barack Obama, came down from 10%, mind you, to 4.8. Trump got it down another 1 point from 4.8 to 3.8%. That's it. That's how much better unemployment got. And then, of course, it went through the roof because of COVID. But that's it. But Trump sat there and said, this isn't about Trump, though. Trump sat there and kept saying, oh, the Obama economy, it was so bad. Do you want to go back to that? And all these people were like, yeah, we don't want to do that. Because Trump kept saying it, people started believing it. And this is what the Republicans do. And I mean, they're not always lying. Republicans know, and it's part of Republican, and I mean, I give them credit for this. It's part of the way they do messaging. They repeat it and repeat it and repeat it until it sinks in. Now, the problem is some of them lie, like the MAGA guys lie, but even if they're telling the truth, they will tell you the truth again and again and again so you don't forget. Democrats will sit there and tell you the truth and then say, well, I told you. I was doing consulting once for Planned Parenthood 20 years ago. And I remember talking to their press secretary and I recommended some issue to work on. And she said, and it was a really good issue. It was great. I mean, it would have been great to rally the base, great for media, et cetera. And she said to me, oh, we already put out a press release on that. And I looked at her and I went, okay. And she meant, it's done. Like, oh, that issue. Yeah. We did that issue. We issued a press release. And I was like, what about, organizing protests, buying newspaper ads? I was like coming up with different things. Doing some stuff online, like doing some op-eds in the newspaper, like other ways of making it a bigger story. And for her perspective, we issued a press release. It's done. Democrats don't think unfortunately, and when I say the powers that be, the activists do, the Democratic powers that be don't really think, hey, you got to take an issue and you've got to really keep blowing. They think, I put the issue out there. We did great. The stimulus bill did great. Everyone will thank us. Obamacare, we did great. Everyone will thank us. What did Republicans do? Republicans spent 10 years attacking Obamacare. Democrats didn't defend it. Now, finally, 8 years later, Democrats finally got credit for Obamacare because people liked it. But for 8 years, the Republicans kept attacking it. Anyway, that's my point with this, that guy going after COVID is a perfect example of what we see, of how people just do the bad guys, in this case, because he's a bad guy, understand that you've got to keep hitting with your point over and over every day, over and over and over again for people to understand, and honestly, if you're lying the same thing, you repeat a lie over and over again and people believe it, right? Which is what Yak Goddess is saying. But also people don't necessarily hear or believe the truth either unless they hear it over and over again, I mean, it's, yeah. And it's funny, Steve. I mean, I don't think of it. I mean, I haven't practiced law, so I don't think of it from a lawyer perspective. I am a lawyer, but I think of it just from doing marketing that I know you've got to keep reminding people and telling them. And it's just, anyway, it's very frustrating to me because they're still fighting COVID, guys. We've all moved on from COVID. They're still fighting it, which means they're still slowly polluting. Will you relax? What? Oh, sorry. They're still slowly, polluting the public discussion on COVID by still putting out those negative points all the time. It's bad. Anyway, it's very bad. Ooh la la. All right. I don't feel like doing the recap tonight. Screw the recap. We've gone for an hour and a half again. Oh boy. One of these nights we'll do Discord. Guys, I just don't have it in me to do Discord when we go this long. There was just too much news again. Thank you for the gift there, Erica. There was just too much news. So, the sirens. Yeah. Well, it's funny. We do have sirens. Oh, well, those were American sirens, you mean? Yeah, that was a police siren. That's the way they are here. I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, and the type of siren. It's always a little weird. The European sirens are a little, with the, or what, it sounds like a donkey, but the kind of, anyway. No sane person buys your lies. Well, they don't have to buy it. I give it for free. No sane person buys your lies. Not okay. By the way, one of the other lessons I like to give is on Russian trolls. That was a Russian troll. They get the talking points, but they use them at the wrong time, right? And I said how they always will call me out for being a liar. Usually, like, I'll be reading a quote from Donald Trump or something, and they'll go, liar. And I'm like, I just read a quote that he said today. What am I lying about? In this case, I was saying Republicans are really good at messaging because they repeat their message point. Democrats don't. And the right-wing troll is going, liar. Like, what? I mean, sorry, inspired woman, thank you for the wand. Russell, thank you for the hat and mustache. Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you, I mean, why would, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're offended that I said Republicans are better at messaging than Democrats, and you're clearly a defender of the Republicans because you're probably a Russian troll, and that offends you? So you're calling me a liar? Like, it basically, I think, like, he's playing computer games, looked up and said, oh, it is time for me to say the Russian talking point. Is I'm on number 6. Liar. And now he's going back to, like, his computer game or whatever the hell it is. I mean, it's just, oh my God. Free lies. I know, free lies. Damn it. We shouldn't have to buy our lies anymore. If I'm president, the lies will be free. He was saying, we do not, also that too. We do not buy your lies. That too. I'm like, buy your lies? I mean, it's an expression, but it's not an expression I hear people use anymore, though. You know what I mean? I don't buy your lies. You know, that's an expression growing up. And maybe you'd hear it on TV, but, like, you know what I mean? Would you actually, I mean, I'm asking the Americans, I don't know about the Brits, but would you actually say that to somebody? I don't buy your lie. You wouldn't say that. You just wouldn't. It's older, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, I grew up with it, but that's older. That's the other thing too. They've studied English. They've studied English in a way that basically their dictionary is from, like, 1950 or something. You know, you're talking pish. No, but I mean, I would say exactly. I'd say I don't buy that BS, or I don't buy, or no, I might say nobody buys that. I might say I don't buy that, but we don't buy your lies. It just, yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I don't buy it. You might say. That's what I was thinking too. I don't buy that. I might say, but I don't buy your lies. Hard to explain why. It rings the, I love the French expression, ça frappe l'oreille. It hits your ear. It just hits the ear funny when you hear it. And loosing, well, that was the other issue. The other guy, yeah. The other guy used loosing, and we already knew we were in trouble on that one. But yeah. But Jingle got rid of him. God bless you. And Jingle recognized him as a troll on Twitch, and I didn't. I was like, give him a little time. But I always say the trolls too. The trolls are really good. You give them a chance. I know that was a rare one on Twitch. I'm glad we empowered you, Jingle. You give the trolls a chance and they prove themselves. That's the one thing the trolls are good at. So, like, if you're never sure, let them go one more. Your lies a whack, yo. I wouldn't even know if that was good or bad what that quote is. Your lies a whack, yo. Is that like a good thing? Like is a whack like yeah, or is a whack like bad? I wouldn't even know. Although it sounds more modern, I'll give you that. All right, guys. All right, I'm gonna get going. Like I said, I don't feel like doing a recap. I'm tired. It's 7:30. TikTok should be giving us our little notice that we've been going for an hour and a half. Actually, I probably already missed it. All right. All right, guys. Well, this has been fun. We'll check in tomorrow as always. Same thing, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. Remember, because of the time change, America is on a different time now than before. So make sure you check the real time. And one of these nights, I swear to God, we'll go to Discord and hang out. I just can't after this. I'm like too tired after an hour and a half of this. But I do check the Discord. I mean, I'm on the Discord anyway all the time. So we're not going to invade Mexico for the cartels. They're a problem. I'm not sure what we do about it, though. Anyway, all right, guys, let's see you all tomorrow, okay? Thank you for the gifts. Thank you, mods. That was fun as always. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow night.